Mychal. I'm a sommelier, tarot card reader, and former ballerina.
Hi, I'm Suzanne. I am a writer, an author, a podcaster, and we are here to talk about the Christmas star.
On All the Woo.
A to Z.
And as always, we'd like to just remind you that All the Woo A to Z is a safe space. It's a non-judgmental zone where you come and join us and we talk about topics and our own understandings and experiences with these things in a safe space.
And we just hope you're entertained.
Yeah. Okay. Beverages. Almost the most important part of the episode. Let's be real. Okay. So
Glarg.
we are doing
Glarg.
pretty much. We're being festive. We're having what's called Gluhwein, which is just basically mulled wine, a German mulled wine. And if you don't know what that is, I am going to tell you. So you can purchase it, and if you purchase it, it is spelled Gluhwein, and I think the U has an umlaut over the top of it. So yes, it can be pre-made.
It's metal wine.
Yeah. Or you can make it yourself. And if you make it yourself, you want to use either white or red wine. I highly recommend red. And then you will add water, sugar, cloves, cinnamon, star anise, orange zest, orange juice with the wine. You heat it up, you simmer it for 20 minutes, you strain it, you drink it warm.
And it makes your house smell amazing.
It does. It does. And so actually,
it's twofold. It can make you look all glowy
and feel warm
and make your house smell like Christmas.
Yes. So, which is why it's seasonal, partially, but the word itself translates to glow wine, and it's because of how it makes you feel after you've been drinking little tiny mugs of it outside in December when it's really cold outside, that you feel like you have a glow. And if you want to glow some extra, you also have the option of adding rum or amaretto into it too.
As someone who has tested many, many different kinds of mulled wine, I would suggest against the addition of amaretto or rum because
it's
the
pretty
sugar
strong
in the wine is.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense beverage anyway, but sometimes people want a little extra kick.
There you go.
So, being festive, that's what we're having.
Yep. And I want to mention that the astrocartography reader, who we talked about in a couple of episodes previous to this.
In gifts.
Mm-hmm. And I did not have his name, but since then have it. So it is in the notes for this episode. So if you want an amazing astrocartography reading or
He's
just
awesome.
astrological reading,
yeah,
that information will be there. So thank you so much.
He's very good.
He's very good.
Okay. So Christmas star story.
There you go.
Suzanne.
Okay.
This is what we're talking about today. Now, we're making a lot of assumptions that everybody knows the story, so I'm going to give real super Cliff Notes version of it being super, super simplified. So the Christmas star is mostly referring to an element of the story of the birth of baby Jesus. So everybody knows the nativity scene where you see Jesus held up in a little barn area. He's in a manger, this little baby. You have Mary, you have Joseph, you have angels, you have these three other dudes that are hanging out off to the side. You have all these little farm animals.
Camels.
And also apparently lobsters.
Lobsters. Shout out to all fans of Love Actually.
Yes. Now lobsters are added into it. Just basically all of nature, I think, has been included in kind of like a Disney.
The heavenly host.
Yes, that they all come to say and welcome little baby Jesus. So the Christmas star comes in to the play of the story in that the three dudes that I mentioned are also known as the three wise men, or also known as Magi.
Or the three kings.
To follow the star in the sky to find Jesus. And so that's like how they travel distances in order to find him. And they also stop by Herod's place to ask if Herod knows where Jesus is. So we're kind of going back a little bit in the story, but that's what we're referring to when we're talking about the Christmas star.
So what's your take on the Christmas star story?
Well, Before I reveal my take on the Christmas story, we're just going to say there's a lot of popular theories out there about what it potentially could be. People say that it's a star conjunction, like when you get, multiple big planets hanging out together, that they look like one big, large, glowing thing in the sky. People say it was a comet or that it was a supernova. Some of my favorite theories are that it's an alien UFO that they were following through the desert, right? Okay.
It's a tear in the, space-time continuum, and we can see into another reality.
So many options.
In blips.
Yes. What I've always been on board with for myself, and even when I was a little child, I always understood it this way, and I can't really tell you why. Because for me, having just one star just like floating through the desert that, these guys are following never really made sense for me, because it was always explained also that the Magi were schooled in astrology and that they had knowledge of the stars and that's why they were looking at the stars. That's why they were following the stars. So for myself, I always understood it as they were following the stars, not one star, but that they were looking at the stars like how astrologers look at the stars today, how we use astrocartography today for location. And so it wasn't necessarily like they were literally following this bright light as it was lighting their way. It was that
it was not a flashlight from the sky.
Correct. But it was stars telling them where to look and where to go.
And see, this is why she's a savant, because she was right.
Yeah.
At least in the theory that we both think is pretty accurate. So a little bit of context. Hellenistic astrology, which is what the Greeks and the Romans practiced, which had been established by Ptolemy back in Alexandria, had all of these rules and ideas of what really powerful people's star charts looked like. And they had hundreds of years of practice.
Yes.
And they also had divided the world up according to zodiac signs. And so you could know what was going on in what part of the world by what zodiac sign it was.
Yeah.
So it turns out that Judea was under the sign of Aries. And the Jupiter is considered the king star or the king planet.
Yeah.
And that's the tricky thing is to Hellenistic astrology, planets are just wandering stars. So star and planet is going to be used interchangeably in this little bit.
So the planet slash star of kings.
Yes.
Representing them.
And a heliacal rising is when a planet rises at the same time as the sun and is considered to be a super powerful sort of birth at that point.
So magnified a lot.
And each planet had the certain degrees away from the sun that it would have the most power. So there was one day in April 17 of 6 BC where the lineup of planets that were rising over Judea was Saturn, Venus, the heliacal Jupiter, which is occulted, which means sort of glued together with the moon at the same time, followed by Mars and Mercury, all in the sign of Aries.
So it was like your all-star lineup cast?
It was basically the most powerful
A-list series of planets you could have rising at one time. Yeah. And how often does this happen, Suzanne?
And that's the amazing thing is it's like with all of the different things that were happening, because it's not that there was a chart that was like, okay, all these planets mean a good king. It was like 2 of these planets mean a world emperor.
Yeah.
2 different one of these planets mean an immortal is being born.
Right.
3 of these planets mean a person of peace. Other of these planets mean a revolutionary, and they all happened at the same time. And this is crazy because like once every 3,000 years.
So like all the time is what you're telling me.
And so when you think about just 3,000 years, and this happened once. I mean, these planets continue to rise and move around, but this particular organization of them, and to do it at sunrise. So back to Ptolemy, the most powerful people were born at either sunrise or at noon.
Okay.
And so it was the most powerful star chart you could have.
So an interesting point to what you were saying is that recently, actually within the past week, I've been listening to different astrologers and they've been bringing up a certain conjunction. So 2 planets coming together in the same space ultimately, or being really, really close together. that they've been bringing up concerning different subjects, not even talking about the same thing, but talk about it as if everybody knows. And I was like, I wasn't aware of this setup, which is a Sun Mars conjunction in somebody's birth chart, and what that does. Like, apparently it makes a huge impact. Well, all planets make a huge impact on somebody's personality, but
I think Nero had that, actually.
I think there's a lot of people that have it, good and maybe not so good. Like, what do you use your powers for?
Right. And it also depends on what's aspected and everything. But you're saying.
Yes, exactly. So, but one thing that all of them independently were kind of talking about is that quality really enhances. So the sun really enhances all the quality of Mars, which is, you're passionate, but typically you're a very driven person. So yes, you can be extra competitive, but also you can be somebody who really fights for others, who needs somebody,
fights for the underdog.
Yeah, needs people to be their champion, right? And to really go against the grain and fight against the man, and like all that kind of idea. They have no qualms about being that person, or maybe, for lack of a better term, to be that sacrifice for others, right? They will put themselves in that position because they see the need, but also can work in non-political situations where, like, even in sports and stuff like that, like I was saying, like, you can be a very competitive person and take competitive sports very, very seriously, and can make you be just really driven in that way. So the fact that that's just one little small amount of what's kind of, going
of the bumper
on.
crop.
Yeah, exactly. I find really interesting, and also really interesting that just within this last week, that's something that has been brought to my attention. I was like, oh, okay.
I know someone with that chart.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, that's what I got. Okay. So another interesting thing that I've always thought that's a little bit different to the traditional story, because everybody sees the three wise men riding on camels. I mean, I love camels. I know you love camels, but
well, step that down just a little bit.
You really enjoy camels? Yes. They're one of your favorite animals?
Yes.
But I don't necessarily have the same level, but I have nothing against them. Okay, let me just preface it all for all camel lovers
You're not
out there.
anti-camel.
I'm not anti-camel, but I just never really saw them as being on camels. I always thought that they would probably be on horses, was like another thing that I always thought. And to that point, even though I know that they traveled distances, it's not like they were living in the same town or even the town, next town over or anything like that. But I don't think that they were traveling as far as what is originally being kind of conveyed in the story. I think people's idea about how far they traveled was like continents, that they traveled.
Well, and the story was embroidered upon for centuries.
Yes.
I mean, they eventually got names and, had all kinds of details. But going back to the story that is given to us in the Bible, looking at the cultural context again, you have proved yourself to be a savant.
Yes. Gold star for me. Oh, bad joke. Okay. Sorry. Not intentional.
Gold planetary alignment for me.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I say that is because it seems like the more likely candidate, or when you read the Bible and it says they came from the east. If you were standing in Judea, where presumably Matthew was as he was writing this, when you look to the east, what you see is Nabatea.
Okay.
In Arabia.
Yes.
And so the Nabateans had all kinds of connections to Judaism. There were, I wouldn't say colonies of Jews out there, but there were definitely groups who had been out there for 1,000 years. And Herod was related to the Nabateans. He was half Nabatean. He'd been raised out there. And he happened to be the client king of Nabatea because the Nabateans were on the outs with the Romans. And so they were having to kind of go through Herod to get whatever they wanted from Rome. And Herod also controlled the waypoints between them and the Mediterranean in order to get their goods to Rome.
So there's a good reason why they stopped by and said hello to Herod.
Well, they were looking at this and it's Jupiter, king of the planets. So we're definitely talking a king.
Yeah.
And where else would a king be born except in another king's household.
You would think. You would think. And yes.
So they show up, they have their fancy gifts.
And so would Herod think, I would think.
And Herod's like, huh. And it says in the Aramaic translation of the Bible that he was perturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. And one of the fascinating things that I think makes the astrological aspect of this make so much sense is that nobody else saw the star.
Yeah.
Because it was not an event.
Yes.
It was this, you had to have a detailed knowledge to know what you were seeing.
Yeah, you would have to know what you're looking at.
I mean, people could see a lineup of things in the sky, but not know what they meant. And so it was in this. So in the first chapter of Matthew, he is giving like all of Jesus's Jewish credentials. And then here in the second chapter, he is sort of giving all of these worldwide, because everybody who followed Hellenistic astrology, which was basically the entire Greco-Roman world, would know by these markers that we were talking a powerful, powerful being born in Judea.
I'm sure Herod was really loving being not in the know at the time.
And this is either right before or right after he had killed a couple of children. So, but he was at the end of his reign. And so it made perfect sense for the Nabateans to go and check in with the king, who was, their client, or they were clients of, and ask. And then, Herod, in his sort of shady way, was like, tell you what, I don't know what you're talking about, but you go look, because the Jewish leaders knew that this person was supposed to be born in Bethlehem, which was on the outskirts of Jerusalem. And so that was kind of how the wise men, the astrologers, narrowed their search down.
Yeah.
And because of the timing of all of this, they could know. And that was in the Aramaic. That's one of the things Herod says is, give me the exact timing that you saw this. And so later when he goes and kills all the children 2 years and younger.
Yeah, he's basically saying,
he knows exactly when.
So do you know this kid's birthday maybe that you could maybe share with me? That would be nice. Yeah. Just because I want to wish him happy birthday too. Yeah.
With a lot of swords.
Yeah.
And so that, I believe, is the connection between the Nabateans, and because they were so close and because they were using their own trade routes that were, had caravanserais the whole way, all they needed were horses, and they were very famous for their horses. They're still pretty famous. So,
okay. So Suzanne, the most important question, I think, for us really to know the answer for all of this is, so why is this woo?
And I think this is why this is the answer for me out of all of the different options. And also the specific time is because, I talked about this being a 1 in 3,000 years, but that's just somebody's speculation. It hasn't happened again.
Yes.
And so when I think about the intricacies of the entire universe having to be put in place so this one person can be born with this particular chart,
and this unique skill set that that they're being born with. They're like, okay, so he's being given the Batman belt of astrology lineups. He's like, here you go. Here are all the tools.
The Batman belt, Wonder Woman's robe, Aquaman's ability to breathe underwater, Spider-Man's ability. I mean, it's like, you are the Justice Team. You were DC and Marvel combined.
Both of them together. Yeah. Mind blown. There you go. Here's what you got. And now go.
Yeah, that would, and just the machinations. I mean, I'm already in awe when I look at someone's chart of the intricacies of what it took to have that person have those talents or abilities or insights or whatever now.
Yeah.
But I've never seen any chart like that ever.
Yes.
And to just the complexity involved of moving all of these planets at this specific time to be able to have that does more than blow my mind.
Yeah.
It actually drops me to my knees in awe.
Yes.
So that's why it's woo.
So you're not going with it's all just a coincidence?
No, I'm
No. Okay. Fair enough.
And that's not even putting in the planets that they didn't know about, but that we do.
Yeah, that were also a part of it.
Where was Pluto? Where was Neptune? Where was Uranus? Yeah.
I'm sure we could probably figure it out.
Yeah. But yeah, the actual calling it April 17th, because the calendar's changed a couple of times since then, it's like, okay, spring, but maybe not exactly what we would call April 17th.
Right.
Which is why I haven't tried to actually draw Jesus's birth chart. What about you? What makes it woo? Besides the fact that you knew half the story at birth.
I mean, not necessarily at birth, but I don't know. Yeah, for me, part of the woo portion is that.
And also, the stellium that you have in the 12th house is very similar to the stellium that.
Not quite that extreme. Although I'll take it. Okay, I'm going to accept that. Thank you. But also,
I am not saying that Mychal is a savior, but
not even close. Not even close.
But just having a stellium, having that sort of 12th house placement.
Yeah, have your sun with all these different things. Actually, my sun and Jupiter.
She's sitting here going, maybe I am.
No, I'm not. I'm not. Let's just be clear about that. I am not that. I'm like, but no, I do. That. Anyway, no, just the idea that I always enjoy hearing on the back end, like I've always just felt that it was this way. And more I start to realize, because as I go through retelling my own experiences and things like that, and I think about the little details of things that I don't necessarily always expound on, the different elements.
These episodes could be so much longer, y'all.
Much longer. So much longer. I've even started. Okay, so just I've started writing down some of them, which has really allowed me to.
I'm contagious.
I finally am listening to the signs. I was told I don't have to, that it's free will, but at the same time, they highly recommend. So I'm going to just save myself some problems down the line by just starting it. Anyway, in this process, I start to realize there's things that I've always been kind of aware of or always felt, but never really stood out to me as to why it was necessarily different. Like I kind of knew that it was different than what other people thought, but I didn't really give it enough attention to think that. So yes, so that idea of what you're saying that I kind of already knew as being like the woo part for me. Yes, not to make it about me in any way, shape, or form though, but that yes, that there was a lineup astrologically that even happened like that, or that could be, compared. And also the woo part of that, I had this idea before you, and when we first blindly came to the table to talk about it, that we both had the same.
Yeah, you had the inspiration, but I had done the research and they came together.
Yeah, they came together perfectly. We're like, oh, awesome.
We have no episode.
Yeah, okay. There we go. That was not the intention, but it's how it worked out. So I will take it.
And I just want to say one last thing because I have to finish the story.
Yes.
So when the wise men, astrologers, Magi, when the Freds,
the three Freds,
it's a good Nabatean name, good three Freds, came to Herod and he consulted the Jews and they were like, yeah, it is prophesied that the leader is going to come out of Bethlehem. And it says, from you will come forth a leader who will shepherd my people Israel. And so when we read that in the West, we think of a shepherd, like with a sheep. But it was code for a Davidic, not just a leader, but like a King David level leader. So a warrior king.
Somebody with a Mars-Sun conjunction.
And a sword on their hip. Yeah. And it's interesting because, Matthew kind of sets up that expectation and shows that that's how all the disciples were looking at it and everything. And that's one of the reasons why, Jerusalem turned against Jesus, because it was like, we were expecting you to be Davidic and you'd peace, love, and puka shells. Probably not puka shells, but that was code for I am coming to turn things upside down.
Yeah.
So that was one of the reasons why Herod was like, I got to get rid of this guy.
He did kind of turn things upside down, to be fair.
Well, there's a reason why we have the dates that we do.
True.
Turn the world upside down. So, all right. Now I have story completion.
You feel complete. Okay. All right. So next week, what are we talking about?
We are talking calendars. We're wrapping up 2024. We have already chosen the brand name for 2025.
Yeah.
And we'll share that with y'all then. But yeah, keep on with us because we're just continuing to go. See you on Thursdays.
We'll see you next time on All the Woo.
A to Z.